So Sameena is once again the epitome of a warrior, a woman who has been through so much. But what Sameena will say from her own words is that trauma can break us. It absolutely can. And recovery can stitch us back together. And I like to say that Sameena is strong, but I think when you hear from her, she may say so otherwise. So without further ado, we welcome Sameena.
Hi, Maya, and thanks a lot for the lovely, lovely introduction. I just hope I can do you some justice with what I'm about to share. Yeah, so let's just go. I'm going to start it off with a quote, actually, and then we'll take it from there. So, why do people keep on telling us to be strong when the most devastating, earth-shattering things happen to them? They don't need to be strong. They need to fall apart and be assured that we'll be there to care and protect them while they do and help them build back up when they are ready. So, what I'm about to share with you is coming from a conversation that I had with a friend a couple of weeks ago. We were just talking about life in general, and we were talking about ups and downs in life when my friend said something to me that kind of like left me a little bit gobsmacked for a moment. I mean, I'd heard it before. I mean, what she said to me was, Sam, whenever I'm going through a rough time, I always think of you as someone who is really strong and really resilient. And whenever I'm going through a tough time, I always look up at you and I always remember you. And I was quiet because in the past, I used to wear that as a badge of honor. You know, I used to feel kind of like, oh wow, I'm strong, and yeah, I am strong, with what I've been through. But I didn't really feel it. I didn't feel strong within me. And so I said to her, I said, it's not something that I've really had a choice with, really. I had no choice but to be strong. Um, it's something that I just had to be, I had to be strong for my siblings. I had to be strong for my father. I had to be strong for the memory of my mother, because my mother was kind of like this very strong, independent, empowered woman. And I didn't want to let her memory down. I wanted to be strong like her. I didn't want to be seen as weak. So the backstory to that is that I lost my mother when I was 19 years old. And when I lost her, we were told, like I was told, specifically being the eldest sibling, that I needed to be strong because now I am taking over the role of caregiver. I'm the eldest in the family. I have to be responsible for everything that goes around, you know, in the home. I have to look after my sisters. I have to protect my siblings. I have to be strong for my father who's just lost his life companion. And it's not something that I really thought about. I just took on that role. It was kind of like some I didn't have time to think about anything with all the havoc and chaos in the house with people coming around to pay their respects. And my younger sibling was actually 13 years old when my mum passed away. So I was quite mindful that I didn't want her to see me being upset. And I didn't really want her to be I didn't want any of them to see me upset. And I didn't want my dad to see me upset because me seeing my dad cry or get emotional would just break me. So, I kind of embraced that protectiveness and that being surrogate mother, even though I was a motherless daughter myself. So, I didn't, navigating life, navigating my own personal life, my work life, my home life. I just went with the flow. I took control of my life. So as long as my life was in control and it was orderly, I was okay. You know, life was a little bit easier when I left and went to uni because that was kind of like an escape route for me. Well, I didn't have to think about anything. I could just be another person that hadn't um had the loss of the parent. I didn't have that loss. So I was just another person. I was just a friend to my friends and having fun and whatever. And everything was going quite smoothly, actually. So, you know, um, everything went smoothly. I got married. Life was okay. I started looking into having a family. When I had my firstborn sadly passed away. And I remember when I came back from the hospital and I went to hug someone, and I remember them saying to me, "Oh, you need to be strong, Sam." Now, I know their intentions were really well, because a lot of people, when they say this, their intentions aren't in a bad place. But I froze. But for me, that was kind of like, you need to be strong, and, that's it. So that that guard just came up, sorry. And I went into that I have to be strong mode. Luckily, I could share my emotions with my husband, who was going through the same kind of thing as well, but I still couldn't show my siblings or anyone else around me that I was upset. I was just this strong person. And you know what? I'm going to go through this. I'm gonna handle it. But I was a mess behind closed doors. But I always had to be seen to be holding it together. Um, Fast forward a few years after that, I gave birth to a child, and he was diagnosed with Down syndrome. Now, my body recognized kind of like the whole scenario. I'm grieving a child that I was hoping to have, but now I have a child who's going to have a lifelong disability, and I'm going to have to protect him now for the rest of his life. I'm going to have to be strong now because I'm going to have to fight his corner. So again, that all came up, and I just went along with it. For me, it wasn't really trauma at that point. It was just life and life's experiences that had shaped me. So, like, how did grief impact me having to be so strong? Well, I guess I suppressed my emotions because I was always having to be in control. I spent a lot of I felt alone. I felt that there was nobody really there that would understand what I've been through, because I didn't know anybody that had lost a mother and lost a daughter and had a child with a disability. I didn't know anybody. None of my friends had lost a parent. None of my friends had lost a daughter. So for me, it was like I felt alone. I also felt abandoned by my mother. So that's kind of like, why did my mother pass away? Why isn't she here for me when I'm going through life's milestones? I've had my children, and I see everybody around me, their parents there taking care of them, making them lovely broths just to heal themselves. And I don't really have anybody to, like, look after me. I've had to, like, kind of look after myself. So being strong. And as a result of all of that, I had kind of like an anger in me as well, because I felt hard done by. And with when I think about it, were these just a result of grief? No, I reckon a lot of it had to do with childhood trauma as well. The anger, the abandonment, a lot of suppressed emotions. So how did I figure all this out? I figured it out when I did the trauma program, and I did the life events list. And when I tallied that up, I was gobsmacked, because I was like, blimey, like, I was just ticking away, because you don't actually think about all the stuff on the life events, do you? And it's when you like have to read them out. And then it was like, wow, like I've actually been through a lot. I mean, I have. And it made me reflect later on after I'd done it on each area that I'd ticked, because it made me it made me think back, but I didn't want to re-experience any of that, and I didn't want to remember any of that. So even though I thought back, I tried not to think too much about it. Um, at that point, that was session one when we did that. So I didn't want to think too into it. And then when we went on to talk about the cluster symptoms, I resonated a lot. I had a lot of aha moments, because the emotionally numbing myself from revisiting past events, I just didn't want to go there. I didn't want to think about it. It's just something that happened to me in the past, and that's that. I just didn't want to think about that kind of stuff. So, and then there was the hyperarousal. Now, with hyperarousal comes hypervigilance. And when we talk, for me, hyperarousal, it's also known as fight, flight, or freeze response, right? So, and it's usually triggered by your perceived threats or your emotions. So, for example, I'd get angry instantaneously. I've been known to be called, you know, that I've got anger issues by my children. Mum, you've got anger issues. I'd be generally irritable about the smallest of things, and you could read it on my face that I was annoyed, and it could start an argument with my husband, for example. If I was irritated, then I'd pick an argument with him, and then it'd blow up into a full-blown argument. I would get startled by loud noises. Now, this is something that still happens to me, and that I would say comes off of hyperarousal to hypervigilance, when you're scanning the environment for your threats, and then all of a sudden you hear a loud noise and you just get startled by it. And I still do that. I still like scream, ah, where did you come from? Or, I still do that because I'm constantly scanning still, I used to read too much into situations. I would overanalyze the behavior of people, and certain situations. I just read into it, make stories of what happened based on my perception. I was over aware of what people used to see and think. So that's another scanning your environment, right? And because of that, because of the constantly scanning your environment, I was always reluctant to go out and meet new people and you know, try new things, because I was just tired of constantly scanning. I was just safe at home. That was my safe space. So I just stay at home. Now, I know, like, scanning of your environment and stuff, I mean, that could be seen as quite a normal reaction for some people, because obviously, naturally, you're going to scan your environment to make sure that you're safe. But when it starts to affect your life and affect, every aspect of your life, that's when you kind of know that there's something not quite right. So yeah, so I did all of that, and so that was an eye opener for me. And then when we went on to do the coping mechanisms, now in the past, when my coping mechanism was, if I ever felt that I lost my temper, I'll just go back in my bedroom and I journal it all out, and I'd write all my, negative thoughts and all my angry thoughts, and it was all my perception, and it was all angry, 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 all negative. And I just my self-talk to myself was always negative. It's almost like I used to gaslight myself. So that it's me. That's, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I did something to like exaggerate the situation. But I never felt good when I used to write my thoughts down. I always used to feel embarrassed, ashamed, guilt. I was never. I never felt good about myself. In fact, I used to feel anxious when I used to think back on certain scenarios. Oh, I said this wrong and I shouldn't have said that. And when I used to go out into certain gatherings, I used to prep myself and say, don't be a bitch, Sam. You need to watch what you say. You need to be nice. And if you can't be nice, then don't say anything at all. But yeah, I used to have to do that. But then when I did the coping mechanisms with your course, Maya, I- it was kind of like, now I journal, but I journal with a purpose. I journal and I concentrate on my feelings. So it's kind of like an onion. I always use this analogy of an onion. I try and peel it layer by layer, and I try and get to the root of why I was feeling that way. What was it about that feeling? Why am I feeling like that? And we talk a lot about root cause because, trauma, emotions and trauma, they're all linked. And so I used to do that. And then I used to positively self-talk. So now I don't know if you've heard of the three C's. So I used to use that. The three C's is, oh gosh, I've got to remember the three C's now. Um, Catch it, check it, change it. And so I used to use that. So that's always at the back of my mind. So when I know that a certain situation is about to arise, and this happens mainly with my husband because he really annoys me sometimes, right? I'll try and catch it, check it, and change it. And then I'll kind of like, it's not worth it, this battle is not worth it, and I'll just walk out. So, that's kind of worked with me as well. And I go for long drives or I just sit down and I just reflect as to, you know, what, my emotions and stuff. Walking doesn't work for me, so long drives or even driving, dancing work. I just shake it off. And I've also got a little bucket, and I've named my bucket "Chuck It in the effing bucket." So if I'm feeling it any anger, I just scrumple it all up and I just chuck it in my effing bucket, So that makes me feel really, really good. So yeah. Um, so that's kind of like that. The work that I've done on myself, it didn't really happen overnight. It's taken quite a long time for me to carry on this journey. I started off as an NLP practitioner and I became a master, but when I did the trauma program, that's when it all started making sense. It was kind of like a jigsaw in my puzzle, and then I trained to be an anxiety specialist so I can understand the feelings within my body. And it was just a jigsaw puzzle. It all came together. So, like with all these things in my toolbox, I can now kind of like work forward from it all. Um, but I'm still human. I still have moments where I lose it. And, I just learn from it. We're all work in progresses. I don't know if so we're all work in progresses and it just never, never stops. So I like to think that trauma doesn't define us. I like to think I'm going to use a washing machine analogy now. So sometimes when I'm feeling like emotions and anxious. If I'm feeling anxious, I think of a washing machine and all the clothes in the washing machine and then all like, going all around. And once it's finished, I take out each item, I put them in the tumble dryer, it all swishes around. When it's all done, I take each item out and each item represents an emotion and I fold it and I deal with it and I reflect on it, and then I take the other item out and I fold it. And that way, I've got this lovely pile of clothes. They're all nice, neatly arranged. They're still the same clothes in the tumble dryer, but I've just sorted them out. So I use that. I like to think of that analogy sometimes when things are kind of like going all over the place. So, like, I'm kind of hoping what I've said has resonated with somebody, and I hope it
Mhm.
hasn't triggered anybody. I'd just like to say one more thing. Um, Healing from trauma is not about forgetting, but about finding the strength and reclaiming your power and moving forward with a heart that is stronger, not harder. My heart became hard. I actually hardened myself to a lot of stuff. So, yeah, so being stronger is different from being harder. And I'd just like to add, right, one more thing. If there's anything that I've shared and it has um, triggered anybody. I know we're going off on a break now, so please, 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 I'd like you to take a moment out to just ground yourself in whatever way that you feel like doing. You can just sit and take it in, or you can shake it all out like I do, shake it all out. And just take a moment to just calm your feelings. And I'd like to finish off by thanking Jill and thanking Maya for giving me this wonderful opportunity for sharing part of my iceberg.